So, welcome everyone to a new episode of Dear Dr. Mao. We are in the month of February, and we have a very exciting program for you this evening. Dr. Mao is joining us to speak about technological innovations that are going to change the treatment of heart disease. And in addition to that, we're very privileged because tonight we have joining us Robert Barna, who is one of our Dow Wellness patients, and he is going to be sharing some of his personal experiences, but I'm going to stay on that for now so that we can tell you more about that later. So let's get things started by just an overview of what's happening tonight. First of all, as a reminder, if you are joining us from Facebook, you have Leah Jonas, our Director of Operations, on with you, and she will be moderating for the evening. So any questions that you have, you are welcome to type them into the box for her, and she will pass them over to our group. If you are on via Zoom with us, then you do have a chat feature at the bottom of your screen as well, and you can type in any questions that you have. For everyone, we're going to hold questions until the end. We did have some individuals who also emailed in questions, so we will get to those at the end as well if we have enough time, which hopefully we will. Now, about tonight's topic, let's just get to the heart of the matter. So February, a lot of us associate this with being the month of Valentine's, but it is also Heart Awareness Month. And this is very important to all of us at Dow Wellness because this is about your well-being. And we look at it as our mission to be able to provide you with tools that are going to support you and educate you so that you can take care of your body in the best way possible. And one of the things to understand is really heart disease is it can impact individuals at any age, of any race. It is a very silent killer, and it's one of the most dangerous things that we face at this time. I hate to use the word dangerous, but I think we need to be frank about that many of us don't consider our heart health early on enough. And it's our ability to educate ourselves that will be able to carry us in the long term of understanding. There are things that we can do at all stages of life to be able to manage our lifestyles in a better way, from the things that we do as far as our daily tasks, how we manage our stress levels, and what we do in terms of nutrition and exercise and health and well-being. So with that, I want to pass over to Dr. Mao, and let's start talking about technology. So, Dr. Mao, cardiology is actually considered one of the fastest evolving fields. And what I'd really like to know is why you believe it's important to talk about emerging technology in tonight's episode. There's so many factors that we could discuss when it comes to heart health, but why did we decide to do emerging technology this time?
Well, simply because heart disease is the #1 killer in America, and it kills close to three-quarters of a million Americans every single year. So you can imagine for a second that is just a stunning number of people who perish from heart disease. And for most people, and that's over 60% of our heart disease patients, they experience their first symptom of heart disease as sudden death. Mm-hmm. That's really scary if you think about it. It is scary. And you go along and don't really know what's going on, and next thing you know, you're no longer here. So that's why technology has evolved in this area. There have been some breakthroughs for a long time. Heart disease patients, when they have clogged arteries, they simply underwent bypass. And that was a dangerous procedure. They've gotten much better with the success rates now. Mm-hmm. And then the innovation of the angiogram and angioplasty, where they can now just go through the femoral blood vessel in your thigh and all the way into your heart and clear the blockage and build a sleeve called a stent. I mean, it's sort of standard care now. And a good 200,000-300,000 procedures done every single year to help patients prevent death from heart disease. So there's been incredible progress in this area, but yet the death rate from heart disease and the incidence rate continues to persist. So what this means is that whatever we're doing, right, it's perhaps, kind of slowing down, or shall we say, not, increasing the number of deaths attributable to heart disease, but we're not improving it. We're not reversing the trend.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result of the massive number of deaths every single year, the scientific and the medical community has focused on heart health is really a priority. And so a lot of funding and research gone into it. So today I'm going to talk about some of the innovative, sort of discoveries or techniques that are being employed.
Okay.
But I also want to talk about later some really good old-fashioned preventative approaches still works very well. Obviously, if you have disease state, you've got to take care of it, and that's when intervention and procedures are necessary.
Okay. Well, perhaps before we do a deep dive into that, can you just explain to us how traditional Chinese medicine operates as a complement to Western medicine when it comes to heart health?
So a lot of patients come in various stages of heart disease.
Excuse me.
So if you have, let's say, for example, plaque on your arteries, and this is basically cholesterol or calcium plaque that kind of builds up on your pipes that are feeding the blood flow to your heart muscles. This is called coronary artery disease. And so they can come in with that, and they're on medication such as the statin drugs to reduce it. So we see that Chinese medicine is a perfect complement to this, because what we can help them is to facilitate the process of dissolving that plaque, but at the same time, really, to reduce the amount of cholesterol and the amount of bad cholesterol to begin with in the bloodstream. And so we can work with them in terms of nutrition, lifestyle activities, stress, that can all contribute to lowering of the causes for this kind of heart disease. Now, there are other kind of heart disease, such as arrhythmias, what we call the atrial fibrillation. These are rhythm problems, and the heart, the electrical system of the heart goes off. Then you have these rhythm problems that can create blood clots and other problems for the heart. But number one killer really is attributable to this blockage of the blood vessel.
Okay. So, and I know stress and hypertension are a very important area in which Chinese medicine is quite effective. But can you kind of walk us through what would be that type of scenario that you could do to support an individual?
No question. So if you think about it, right? So if you've got just miles and miles of tubes flowing, just distributed throughout your body, and these are pipes that your heart pumps blood through. And the blood has to reach your toes, reach your hair follicle, reach your brain, and other organs in order to keep them alive and nourish them with oxygen and nutrients and get rid of waste products. Okay, so this has got to work perfectly. I mean, amazing amount of activity that goes on, right, that we're not aware of. However, if the pressure goes up in the pipes, then at some point, the pipe's going to burst. Right, we all have had experience of pipe bursting in our house. We don't want that to happen in any part of our body. And high blood pressure also can put pressure on the kidney and the liver and the heart and the brain. So again, it's not good for many conditions. And Chinese medicine happens to be in this really sweet spot where we can positively affect the blood pressure of an individual by using acupuncture to lower their cortisol level, rebalance their autonomic nervous system, so the sympathetic overdrive, when the body's very tense and in survival mode, we can get them off that. So blood pressure will lower. We can prescribe Chinese herbs. There are herbs that are very specifically helpful for this, such as chrysanthemum. That's a perfect example of an herb that we use, hawthorn berry, and so forth. Even red rice yeast, which also lowers cholesterol, the bad cholesterol. And in addition to that, Tai Chi, Qigong, and meditation have all proven to lower blood pressure. So it's really critical. And by the way, blood pressure, talking about blood pressure, the American Heart Association has lowered this, guideline on blood pressure. It used to be that, hey, if you're 70 years old, it's okay to have 140 over, let's say, 85. Now the guideline is no longer the case. It's 120. Get it under 120 on the systolic, which is the pressure when the heart pumps, and the diastolic on the bottom number should be below 80. So that would be ideal. And so now suddenly a lot of people are going, wait a minute, my blood pressure is in the 130s, and that's not healthy. So I got to get on it. It's very important to keep the blood pressure low.
How often should a person have their blood pressure checked?
You can check it every day if you want, if you have high blood pressure. But look, it might actually drive you crazy. So people are so obsessive and compulsive about it that, they drive their blood pressure up and get anxious. My suggestion is that, check it once a week. And it's very easy. Just go to the pharmacy, local pharmacy. Usually have a cuff. You can stick your arm in there and you can check it. You can buy one in a home blood pressure kit that costs $20 or $30. It's very inexpensive now, and it might save your life. So really know your blood pressure. And I would take it twice a day, discard the first reading, then record those readings, and then take an average. That would be your average blood pressure. And it should be 120 over 80 and below.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's talk about technology. I have to admit, you and I were kind of chatting about it before, when we started researching this, I know you are passionate about this topic. And at first I was like, really? This is what we're going to talk about? And then as I started researching it, I became as fascinated as possible with it. I had no idea so many unique innovations have been occurring, particularly in the last 5 to 10 years. So I'm really excited now for you to dive into this and start sharing with everyone what is happening, because just in the last year alone, there have been so many fascinating articles written on this topic.
Yeah, so we can start with some very simple sort of innovations that's been kind of happening. So there are a couple issues, right? So if we think about heart disease, right? So the shutting off of blood flow to the muscles cause a cardiac arrest. Right. That's called infarction. So cardiac infarction. So that's a heart attack. And so symptoms may include angina, like chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, and so forth. So the intervention, of course, if you catch it early enough, right, they can basically go and do a angioplasty. They oftentimes don't need to do open heart surgery anymore. So angioplasty through your leg and put a wire and a camera all the way up and basically remove the blockage there and then put a stent right into your heart coronary artery. So that's still happening, and it's standard practice, is life-saving. Okay, but now what happens when you have damaged heart tissue? Because maybe you didn't get to it on time, maybe you waited a little too long, and you did the procedure and it saved your life, but now your heart is damaged. So you could suffer, let's say, anywhere from 10% damage to all the way up to 75% damage. So beyond that, you probably won't be alive. But, so let's say you've had this damage, the heart muscle doesn't regenerate very easily, and so it's scar tissue. Scar tissue is essentially dead tissue. So now you are essentially pumping at less capacity. So your heart's weak, you're pumping less blood, and so you're going to feel weak and tired. And so there's really no solution to repair the damaged part of the heart. But what we've been doing in the last 10 years, of course, is stem cell. So stem cell is to take embryonic cell or adult cells and coax them into turning into the heart cells. And in the heart, we have really 3 types of cells. We have the cardiomyocytes. Myo means muscle, so heart muscle cells. Okay, and then you have these neurons, right? These neuron cells that are the ones that are pulsing, actually, the electrical signals to help get the muscles to contract. Okay, so that's very important. And
Mhm.
the third type of cells are endothelium cells that line the blood vessels. And so all three cells are quite important. And by the way, interestingly enough, research have discovered that when we used to think that heart is just cardiomyocytes, which are the heart muscle cells. But no longer is the case. We discovered that there are actually just as many, if not more, neurons in the heart. Because again, the whole thing is an electrical field. So lots of electricity going through that, causing the muscles to work properly. So what happens with the damaged area? So stem cell, what they're finding now is that infusing stem cell into these damaged tissue is so far the results are that it's improving capacity, even though those stem cells may not last that long,
Mhm.
because it's more complicated than what we think. If we think like, okay, we inject stem cells into a part of the body, we expect that, that those cells to turn into heart muscles and then just work like everything else. Well, so the technology now is basically they've got not just stem cells, but they have these patches of stem cells that they're actually printing. So this 3D bioprinting. When you think about 3D printers, we're printing all these plastic models and so forth. They're doing 3D printing on a big scale, building houses with a 3D printer, which is crazy. I've been looking at these models. And right now over in Las Vegas, they've got the CES going on right
Right.
now, electronic show, and they got all kinds of great technology out there. But how did technology translate into actuality, the applications of it? So the patches that are being developed now, what they do is they print not just these stem cells that have been turned into heart cells, but they're also printing blood vessels. They're printing a whole infrastructure that supports the liveliness of those cells, because once they are sort of put onto the heart, they need to continue to work. And so it's getting very close. And I estimate, as far as some of the companies that I've actually talked to, what they're saying is that within the next 3 to 5 years, they'll
Mhm.
probably have these patches available. So that's pretty exciting. And
And
then the third, yes, go ahead.
Dr. Mao, do we know with the patches, once a patch is applied to an individual's body, how long does that stay in place for? Does it have to be removed at some point and then reapplied, or is that literally for lifetime?
Well, the idea of this kind of patch therapy is that that patch becomes part of your tissue. Because remember, they're printing a part
Right.
to attach to
Right.
your body with all the blood vessels and everything. So that in itself becomes a permanent fixture, unless, of course, it dies and it didn't take.
Mhm.
Right. And of course, there's also the transplant, right? So they're
Right.
transplanting pig heart and so forth. And so that's happening also at the same time. But what happened is there's not enough heart around, and
Mhm.
the porcine hearts are maybe not as desirable. And too many patients are dying waiting for
Mhm.
this. And so if you can repair the heart muscles, that would be incredible. And so that's where the technology is heading right now. We're also looking at um, for rhythm problems. So this is where I talked about repair the heart muscles. But what about when
Mhm.
the electrical system is going awry? You
Mhm.
got atrial fibrillation, ventricular fibrillation. So what they all means is that your heart becomes dysregulated. So
Mhm.
the rhythm, if your heart's not beating consistently and so forth, and it's beating erratically,
Mhm.
what it's going to do is going to cause a clot actually to form. That's very dangerous, because you can then have a heart attack or you can have a stroke. And so that's really the important thing to remember. So what happened is that, so if someone who's undergone any kind of procedure, whether it's a stent, angioplasty, or they have sort of they've have a ablation therapy or whatever it might be, they actually will need to take a blood thinner. Like,
Mhm.
there's many blood thinners out there, and a baby aspirin is an example, just to thin the blood and prevent clots from forming. Um, But what if you don't need any of that and you can just create another way to sort of regulate the pulse, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there is now implantable defibrillators that people can use to prevent the heart from becoming dysregulated. That's number one. And they're kind of like pacemakers, which
Okay.
have been around for a long time, that prevents your heart rate from going below 40, 45, because then that's not good either. And
Mm-hmm.
so this implantable defibrillators are already being very widely deployed. So that's working very well. But they're also looking at robotic sleeves, and this is rather interesting because if you're looking at so what they've done is develop a sleeve that goes on the lower portion, the ventricle, okay, of the heart, and it mimics the way heart muscles work. So
Mm-hmm.
it contracts and relaxes. Now the heart, when it pumps, it not only contracts but it also twists in order to pump. And so they've been able to figure out how to mimic that. And then with this electrical device, which is really a soft robot that attaches in that part, lower part of the heart, and it actually mimics the way the heart pumps. So now for people who have, for example, congestive heart failure, which is a weakening of their heart, they can now get the same capacity, and that capacity is measured by a number called ejection fraction, which is how much blood volume are you pushing out every time you're contracting. And
Mm-hmm.
people who suffer from heart attack and weakened muscle or congestive heart failure, their ejection fraction can be as low as 30%. And what you want to do is normal would be somewhere in, above 50. I mean, when I say normal, I mean, obviously you want yours to be as high as possible. But
Right.
if you get up to 50, 60%, you're feeling pretty normal at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another interesting thing that they're doing. They've got sensors all over now. Sensor technology is really changing the way medicine's being practiced now. So you can actually measure, you can put a little sensor in to the pulmonary artery, which is the artery that goes from the heart, to the lungs. So you've got this little sensor there that can detect if there's not enough oxygen, there's not enough pressure, and so forth. And then it will send that data to the doctor so you can, kind of intervene right away before you suffer more congestive heart failure. Because if there's water fluid backing up into the lungs, then you can overwhelm the heart and cause a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, you've got interesting stuff going on with artificial intelligence. The studies in the last few years have shown that the computer artificial intelligence is actually better at predicting death. I mean, I know that's weird to say that, but
Very.
it's very weird because what they did was they took 27 variables that a cardiologist would use to predict, like, oh, this patient's at a high risk for death. So this is called risk modeling, right?
Right.
And the AI, just kind of after you feed all this information, has come up with like 600 variables, including things that the doctors never thought about. Like, one of the variables would be when the patient, requires home health visit from the cardiologist. The AI flagged that variable because basically patient's too sick to come in to the doctor's office. So they really need to, that's a huge risk factor. Whereas as a cardiologist, you don't think about that. You're like, well, is it because it's inconvenient? Is it, what's up with that? Why are they requiring a home visit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so AI is going to rapidly change the way that medicine is practicing, because just in this incidence alone, that the AI can do a risk modeling and identify patients who are at higher risk of having a heart attack and die from it than others, and intervene immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So far, what we talked about is just life-saving and try intervening. And these are all great technologies, and they will save many more lives. But we're not still dealing with prevention. I mean, let's not get sick in the first place, right? It's
Right.
great that we've got better treatment when you have a heart attack. But what about prevention? And this is where, I think I want to spend a little more time talking about.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so prevention. So how do people develop heart disease? Some of it is hereditary.
Mm-hmm.
So genetically, let's say mom, dad, grandparents, great-grandparents all died of heart disease at age 45 or have heart attack. So that puts you at a higher risk. So from early on, we need to identify these patients as genetically predisposed, and you can also do these genetic testing to show that you do, in fact, have a risk factor for this. And so knowledge is power. So if you have this knowledge ahead of time, you know, in your 20s, you said, okay, I've got this high risk. What do I do to lower my risk so I will never have to experience that? So we know from all the studies and what Chinese medicine has looked at is that why do people have heart condition is because there are two main factors. One is since the heart is said to house the spirit. So when your spirit is upset, it's disturbed, it's angry, and all of that in a sustained fashion over time, you're going to have heart problems. So Chinese medicine 5,000 years ago identified that the heart is affected by your mind, your emotions. So if you're negative all the time, you're depressed, you're anxious, you're angry, you're upset, you're type A personality, which comes into play here, now you've got a much higher risk for having heart disease. So that's without a doubt. And now today, we know from all the research backing up the wisdom of Chinese medicine that, hey, you know what? If you are stressed and you're releasing all this cortisol in your body, which is a stress hormone, you're going to increase your blood pressure. You're going to cause your heart to exert much more than normal. And in that sustained state, you're going to basically wear out your motor much faster. And something's going to happen to it. For example, blood vessel does constrict. So those little coronary arteries that feed your heart muscles can also constrict under stress. And so, therefore, it can deprive blood flow to your heart, and it can cause these little mini damages over time to the heart muscle. That's number one. Okay. And what do we do to prescribe a cure for this? Well, meditation, Qigong, Tai Chi, spiritual cultivation. You need to really look at what's causing you to be so angry. Why? Why are you so upset? Why are you so, negative all the time? So you need to kind of reset your mind, subscribe to a positive mindset, and more importantly, laugh more. We say that the sound of the heart is ha, H-A. So H-A means the sound that's made when you're laughing, ha 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 ha. So when you're laughing, you are generating something called nitric oxide, which is laughing gas, and it dilates your blood vessels and feeds your heart muscles with more oxygen, more nutrients. It's brilliant if you think about sort of how the ancient Chinese physicians figured this out, that laughter is an antidote for heart conditions, right there. And then the other reason is all the things you do to clog it up. So that means a high cholesterol, high fat, high toxins in your diet, your environment. For example, smoking. If you put nicotine in your body, put all the junk in your body, you're going to increase the risk for atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, all of that stuff. And if you don't exercise, guess what? The muscles atrophy, just like your arm, right? If you don't do your exercise, the muscles in your arm just get smaller and smaller. There's no question that exercise can keep the muscles healthy, but not extreme exercise, because what we notice is that extreme athletes actually injure their heart. So this is not a good thing either. So you want to just make sure you are consistently exercising, challenge yourself a little, but not extreme. Okay, so that's very important. And yeah.
Can we go back to the topic of meditation? I know you created a meditation specifically for the heart, happy heart, healthy heart meditation. Why did you decide to do that, and how is that beneficial, particularly for those going through heart
Thank
issues?
you for bringing this up, because of the fact that meditation has been shown to lower blood pressure and increase heart health.
Mhm.
And the way to do that is by combining breathing, visualization, as well as sometimes simple postures and so forth, but to help your body uh, create the ideal environment for the
Mhm.
heart to be as healthy as possible. And this is so critical that everybody have access to this. I mean, again, if you don't have heart disease, but you're looking to prevent heart disease, this is a meditation to do. Only takes you 15 minutes to do every day. It opens and really helps to relax the blood vessels and feed more oxygen and nourishment into your heart muscles. And at the same time, it regulates the rhythm, because again, the rhythm, the electrical system is just as important, okay, as the muscle that's pumping. And so
Mhm.
both have to work in sync.
Mhm.
And so by practicing this, and I use the term happy heart, healthy heart, is because joy and laughter is the emotion of the heart. And so by cultivating joy and laughter in your life on a daily basis, I sometimes prescribe laughing therapy. I say, go home and watch half an hour of your favorite comedy show, and make sure you have belly laugh, because that's really important every day.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
So anyway, so meditation, we also, clinically, we besides using acupuncture, we prescribe herbs that are specifically healthy. And
Mhm.
I mentioned 3 herbs earlier, and so I'll come back and circle back to this. So number one, chrysanthemum. So chrysanthemum flower has traditionally been used as a tea and to promote a relaxation, but also lower blood pressure. So that's been shown to be quite an effective herb for that.
Mhm.
And the second herb, for example, hawthorn berry. So hawthorn berry is a fruit, in fact, and it's also consumed as a tea, a beverage. But again, all this can be put into a capsule. The hawthorn berry, it has been shown to also lower cholesterol, both the triglycerides as well as the LDL, which is the low density lipoprotein. That's the bad cholesterol. Those are stuff
Mhm.
that you don't want, right? And
Right.
the third herb that I mentioned earlier is red rice yeast. So
Right.
this is a naturally occurring yeast in red rice, and gives it actually that redness, that red color. And this has really received a lot of attention and study, and it's shown to actually lower cholesterol, total cholesterol, as well as LDL cholesterol and triglycerides. And that's just, these are important herbs that we provide for our patients, both on a treatment basis as well as preventive basis.
Okay. And so if they are not able to come into the clinics for a custom appointment and receive a customized blend, what about on our bridge products, over the counter products? What would you recommend to them that we have that they could be taking?
Well, we do have a heart health formula that contain these 3
Mm-hmm.
ingredients and more other herbs that can help. And now, what I always tell people, and this is how we work with our patients, like, okay, look, you're on cholesterol medication like statin drugs. Well, do not stop them. In fact, do not stop any medication.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go ahead and layer the Chinese medicine onto what you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And let's measure your blood pressure regularly, and let's check your cholesterol every month to make sure that it's coming down. And so by adding our treatment, we're able to see an improvement. In other words, blood pressure is lowering, cholesterol is lowering. So now we can then ease up on the statin drugs, because a lot of people react to statin drugs in terms of muscle pain, fatigue, and liver enzyme gets elevated. There are a number of side effects that people experience. And so it makes them difficult to tolerate. Now, I recommended in the past CoQ10, coenzyme Q10, which is an antioxidant for heart muscles. But some people, even with CoQ10, they're still suffering with it. So what we do is we stair step a little bit. We work with their cardiologist. We make sure that they're under the supervision of the cardiologist, not going off the medication unilaterally. And so step by step until to the point where their cholesterol and blood pressure is at a point where it's really, really very good range, and they're using little or no medication. So at that point, we can completely replace the medication with Chinese herbs and diet. The diet I put patients on is more plant-based. Let's drive you to lower your intake of animal products if possible, and because that's where the saturated fats are. Let's increase omega-3 intake and lower the omega-6 and 9 intake. And those are the vegetable oils that we don't want, and we want more of the flax oil, hemp seed oil, chia seed oil, and avocado, and the good fats that we want to introduce into our body.
Okay. What else would you like to share with us, or shall we bring on our special guests now?
Well, yeah, for sure. Look at if you have before we bring on our special guest, Robert, you've been very patient. Thank you so much. But think about it, right? What are the risk factors for heart disease? It's not just cholesterol, but it's a lifestyle. So it's everything from what you eat and what you're not eating, right? To how much are you moving around, exercising? What is your stress level? How are you coping? And what about your weight? We know for a fact that if you're overweight, the algorithm goes up. In other words, for every 10 pounds you're overweight, you increase your risk factor of heart disease by something like 15%. So you've got to look at that and go, you know what? I got to manage my weight. I got to change my lifestyle. I got to cope with stress better. So these are lifestyle choices that people can make. And if you have diabetes, that essentially increase your risk for heart disease by at least 30%, if not more. So all those have to be taken into consideration. So I'm happy that we're able to invite a special guest who has sort of gone through a transformation himself. So please.
Yes, I'm going to unmute you, Robert. And we're very honored to be able to have you with us this evening, Robert. You know what? I think I have to have you do it on your side too. If you don't mind, Robert. There we go. Okay, we should be good now. So Robert is a patient of Tao of Wellness, and some of you may be familiar with him because he did write an article for us in our January Tao of Wellness newsletter, and it was just a very beautiful, well thought out article based on his personal experiences. So what I'd like to do now is hand over to Robert so that he can share with you his personal story, and I think you will be able to understand a better profile of how we are able to support at Tao of Wellness those patients that come to us needing guidance for their lifestyle changes, and just to be able to hear his perspective, because it's one thing to hear Dr. Mao discuss these different topics, and he's so knowledgeable about it. And of course, I'm on the sidelines cheering everything on, but I love when we can actually have individuals who are patients of ours come on and share with us as well. So with that, I'd like to hand over to you, Robert, and please feel comfortable to start in your story wherever you would like to.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone, or good evening. I was introduced to Dr. Mao and the Tao of Wellness when a good friend of mine, and she's still a good friend, mentioned to me that I looked old and tired and that I needed to do something. And so I've been seeing Dr. Mao for about a little over 7 months now. 12 years ago, I had an atrial fibrillation episode. I was in the hospital for 48 hours. My heart rate was all over the place, pumping at 120 to 150 beats per minute for well over 30 some odd hours as I tried to get it fixed. In the aftermath, I was put on statins for cholesterol, as well as sotalol to keep my heart rate down. And been on that for 12 years until I started on the program with Dr. Mao. And my intent of going to Dr. Mao wasn't necessarily to lose weight or about the heart issue. It was really about feeling better and changing my lifestyle and having more energy and wanting to get up in the morning and meditate and exercise and all of those things. So, between the acupuncture, the herbs, the changing my diet, I started feeling better so I could get up in the morning. And instead of feeling like I just want to go back to bed, I was like, okay, now I'm going to get up. I'm going to have my lemon water. I'm going to get on the bike. I'm going to work out. I feel much better at work. was having lots of problems falling asleep at my desk, and now I have the energy to stay awake throughout the day and those types of things. So, and over time, I mean, I'd see my cardiologist every 6 months, and it was always the same story. You know, you need to lose some weight, you need to work on your lifestyle. I'd nod, yes, yes, yes. 6 months later, nothing had really changed. So it's really been a transformation working with Dr. Mao and so on, and the rest of the staff of the Tao of Wellness. And it has been a lifestyle change.
Mm-hmm.
What were the results? So you did visit your cardiologist how long ago?
Well, yes. Well, first I saw my general practitioner in September, and my cholesterol was way down. So we went off the statins then, and then saw my cardiologist in November. She was impressed that I had lost over 50 pounds. All my vitals were good. And so we weaned myself off of the sotalol. And so right now I'm drug-free, and, you know, and hopefully the heart, you know, hangs in there and we don't have any episodes. But so it's been a great transformation for me.
That's fantastic. And this is just in the last year then, your last time that you met with your general practitioner?
Right. So I started with seeing Dr. Mao at the end of June, and then September saw my general practitioner because I was losing weight and it was going so well. I was a little nervous that maybe something else was going on. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. And then had my every 6 month appointment last November with my cardiologist, and she was very, very pleased with the results. And she was like, "Now, what's the doctor's name?" And I'm like, "He's just down the street." So anyway, because she gets asked by cardiac patients, you know, about acupuncture and Chinese treatments, and she didn't have somebody to refer them to. So I'm glad that we put that connection together.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Mao, how did you devise your recommendations for him?
Well, you know, well, first and foremost, you know, I think Robert is he's very modest. Yeah, this is not an easy. He made it sound like, okay, you know, I just kind of follow directions. Listen, I mean, he followed directions to a T. I mean, I cannot compliment him, you know, more than I think he's just kind of underplaying, like, okay, this is what happened. You
Right.
know, one of the so when someone comes in like this, and you know, first he presented like he just wanted to feel better. He didn't have any energy. So I kind of examined him and looked at everything, and I thought, well, you know, you're carrying extra weight around. It's going to drag you down. Just imagine Robert was carrying 50-pound of pack. Now I remember going backpacking in my youth. I used to carry 50, 60 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, by the time I got to the campsite, I was like dying. I couldn't wait to get that backpack off me. And it was, I mean, I cannot imagine carrying that backpack around 24/7 for I don't know how long it's been for Robert. But so I looked at him and I thought, wow, Robert, you know, we can definitely help you feel better with energy and all of that. But I think you just need to offload some of this. And plus, you know, you're at high risk for heart disease. And we want to prevent heart disease. We don't want you to have a coronary, you know, one of those infarctions. And those things come any minute, right? Because, I mean, I don't want you to feel paranoid, but I tell you, over 60% of heart disease patients experience their first symptom of sudden death. So we just need to make sure we're lowering the risk wherever and whenever, right? So that's what I worked with Robert. So I put him on an eating program. I was very specific for his purposes. We gave him herbs that lower the cholesterol, lower the blood pressure, and help regulate, against the signal process. We talked about stress, and he's a very busy executive, and he's got lots going on. So, so again, he followed everything, which was sort of amazing, right? That someone can, and again, he mentioned earlier, like every 6 months, went back to the cardiologist. It's kind of the same story, right? Nothing changed. And well, we held him accountable. That was another thing. Was I told him, I said, Robert, you know, you gotta lose this amount of weight every week. I'm going to measure you, and you better get in here, and we're going to hold you accountable. And boy, he was consistent. He showed up, he got his treatment, he got on the scale, and every time we just clocked 2 to 3 pounds each time. And I was like, Robert, if you keep going like this, we're going to reach our goal. And he did. I mean, it's really amazing. And so I thought, wow, you know what? Let's bring him on the show and ask him to tell how he did it, really, because we all want to do something, but there's a difference between the desire to do something and then actually achieving. So how did you do it, Robert? Because this is difficult.
Well, I would say the biggest factor that helped was having somebody to help me along. Mm-hmm. I mean, you provided a pathway for me. You showed, this is when you are eating red meat, this is what's happening to your body. When you are eating processed sugar, processed foods, this is what's happening to your body. And when we first started, they took away ice from me. They took away raw foods because that just makes it harder on your body to warm up that water. It makes it harder on your body to digest the raw foods. And I had people going, what diet doesn't let you eat salad? And I said, well, we're trying to do something else here. We're trying to get all the organs working again, and to get blood flowing to my brain and not to my stomach. So really having a team behind you, as I said, Dr. Maos, so on, everybody at the Tao of Wellness was, has been so helpful. Mm-hmm. And I will say, when I was handed that one sheet of paper, I kind of looked at that and I was scratching my head trying to figure out how this was actually going to work.
Wait, what's the sheet of paper you got handed?
Well, that was the diet, and there was a lot of no's, and there were a few yeses, and some suggestions for meals, which primarily were grains I'd never heard of, a lot of vegetables that I'd heard of, but usually didn't eat a lot of. Mm-hmm. But I love to cook, and when I first met Dr. Mao, I said, well, I like to cook. And he's like, well, you're just going to have to figure out how to cook these foods as opposed to the other ones. Mm-hmm. And he says, we need to eat to live, not live to eat. Mm-hmm. And so that's been a good mantra. As well, I still enjoy cooking. It's about cooking the right foods to support my lifestyle, and not just cooking grand meals to pile on calories and calories of fat and sugars and things like that. So, so I kind of enjoy that challenge. Taking my lunch to work is another part, but that, again, that requires discipline and planning. So oftentimes, like tonight's Monday, so tonight we're making food for the next, 2 to 3 days. So we'll be making our pile of black rice and some quinoa and some farro, and sauteing some cabbage and other greens. So that way in the mornings I can pull together, my lunches, and dinners are very easy during the week. So that's it's not every day that you have to spend a lot of time on it, but if you spend, an extra hour to 90 minutes, 1 or 2 nights a week, you can really sort of set up your meal plan for the whole week, and that makes it a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of support did you receive from your wife? I mean, I think this is important for people to know.
Well, obviously, she quickly liked the results, so I was getting lots of support from her. She was actually doing something else as a diet, and so kind of our evening meals came together in terms of eating, fish, a little bit of poultry, plant-based diet. So that worked very well for her. And in fact, combined, we've lost over 100 pounds. So a lot of people look at us and they don't recognize us anymore as the couple they used to know. So now that we've done that, we've been very supportive of each other in our lifestyle change as well. So that has been a big part of it. So she wasn't over there eating bonbons or anything while I was, eating kale. So, but no, she's been very supportive.
Did you have like that kind of aha moment where what was that point when you realized, wow, I'm really starting to feel different?
Well, obviously, getting on the scale and looking in the mirror on a daily basis, you'd start to see the change. But I think that one thing that I haven't quite talked about, is part of not feeling well was that there was a lot of the lifestyle basically was putting a lot of stress not only on my heart but all the other organs, the livers, the kidneys, everything else. else. And so through the detox program, we really kind of cleaned those up. And we had gone to a dinner at a couple's house. It was a dinner party, and they were serving spaghetti with a homemade tomato sauce and red wine and gelato. And Dr. Mao was always good about in those situations. It's fine, but in moderation. So maybe it was a little more than a moderate amount that night. But came home, was full. But I realized that a year ago, if I came home feeling that way, I wasn't going to sleep for 2 or 3 hours. Otherwise, I was going to have acid reflux and be up all night.
Okay.
And I was able to go to bed, slept through the night, felt great the next day. So I didn't have that burning going on in my chest, didn't have those things that used to be. So that was my aha moment, that my body's now changed. I can digest these foods, even though, I avoid them, but if I do have them, my body's basically processing them. And so I want to keep this up because I want to be able on occasion to have those foods, but not have the after effects of acid reflux or indigestion and things like that. So that was my aha moment, I would say.
Okay. What about mindset? Just going, because you had this thought process, obviously. How has your mindset changed? Because I would think there were other triggers that also had to change in your lifestyle as you moved through this process.
I mean, my mindset now is I don't want to go back. Whenever I've lost weight in the past, you lose about 20 pounds and you look great for about 6 months, and then 2 years later, you're back to where you were. So I think that the mindset is it's eating to live, not living to eat. But I would also say that there are a lot of friends and actually people I barely know who have come up to me and say that, you look great. What have you been doing? I tell them about what I'm doing. So I'm getting a lot of encouragement from people all around who are just like, keep it up. And so now I kind of feel like I've got 50 people watching me all the time.
That's beautiful.
And make sure I don't, slip back into the old ways. But
I think you're shifting into becoming a mentor for many other people in actuality.
Well, when Dr. Mao asked me to appear, I was wondering if I wanted to do it. And my wife said, you need to do it because if there's one person who's inspired by it, then that's what you need to do. So
exactly.
She gets credit for me being on here today.
Well, we're very lucky to have you, so thank you. Dr. Mao, what other questions do you have?
Well, no, I think, I think Robert talked about the sort of program, once we lay out a path, and then he decided to, walk the path, and he had support from his wife, and he really made the commitment to do it. And so often in life we have health conditions and we already know sort of what we need to do, but we don't quite do it. We do it haphazardly or whatever it might be. So what he made, and I want to comment on that, is a choice. It's a choice to live a different lifestyle. Because the lifestyle that we can all kind of fall back into would be, entertain with friends and have whatever, tons of red meat and drink a glass of wine every night. All that is great and it's enjoyable, but at some point you're going to have to pay for it. Like he said, you wake up in the middle of the night with heartburn, and lots of people do. I mean, this is one of the most common problems we see, and then the other organs start to kind of decline in their function. I spent my entire career doing aging research and then also figuring out how not to age.
Right.
And so aging is really nothing but a decline in function of your organs. And so as your stomach is unable to process and digest properly, you're going to have all kinds of issues and reactions. And so he pointed out that, wow, now his stomach is better and he can actually digest and process things that he didn't used to feel good about. And then the part about just really being able to be inspiring. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, I look at life as a opportunity to share what you've gone through with other people, because so many people strive to try to lose weight, get healthy, exercise, but they don't seem to know how, or they hit up against blockages and so forth. And if you can become an example, like you walked through that path, you know how you feel now on the other side. Now, I think we all really need to be responsible to kind of help other people along the way, right? But sharing with your experience is a way to inspire others, to give them confidence to know, like, hey, you know what? Robert did it. I think I can do that too, you know. And for me, Robert, personally, I mean, you know, you share your story and I share my story all the time. Like a year and a half, 2 years ago, I became vegan, and my wife soon after followed me. And so this is plant-based, right? And it's amazing. We both lost 20 pounds. And everybody comments, we go out, they go, wow, you guys look amazing. And that is an encouragement. It really is. It's like, you know, so at dinner parties, I'm looking at all this stuff that I used to eat and they look amazing and look very tempting. But because of that comment, like, you guys look great, that, you know, I think about it and I go, you know what? It's a choice I made. And I'm making this choice to feel good instead of the momentary pleasures in which I will end up paying for. Now, you know, what you're saying, what you shared is that occasionally you do kind of go out and have a little good time here and there. That's fine. But for the most part, it's a lifestyle that we choose. And I know that if more and more people can make that choice, learn how to cook. You know, it's a big plus that Robert, he likes to cook, but learn how to prepare food. It's not that difficult. You know, I have a cookbook called Secrets of Longevity Cookbook that majority of the recipes are plant-based, and they're very tasty, and they've been shared with me by centenarians that I've interviewed around the world. And so, you know, play with it. Food is fun. Cooking is fun, and you can make healthy food taste great. You know, and Robert, I don't know, I mean, you mentioned, you know, you made a little face and talked about kale, but, you know, I massage my kale. There's a way to massage the kale so it's nice and soft. I really hated kale when I first got introduced to it, but now I like it because I massage it. It's got a nice texture, but it's not, you know, it's not like eating sawdust. But I flavor it, a little vinaigrette, and all this. It just comes alive. It's amazing. So.
Thank you to you both. You know, we've been having so much fun here that we're actually already coming up on the hour, but I know we do have some questions. Would both of you mind to stay just a little bit longer? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Hey, you know, I just noticed that Philip is online. So,
yes, I had sent you a message about that.
Oh yeah, I just looked at it. I don't know, Philip, I mean, if you're still online, you want to share a little bit of your story, I think could be very impactful. Please.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me see if I can get him connected here. Hold on, Philip. Philip, are you able to speak? Oh, hold on. Philip, on your side, can you see if you are able to unmute yourself as well? Both of us have to do it? Let me see if I switch him over to panelists. Hold on. Philip, can you talk now? No, okay, hold on one second. Let me see if I switch you over to panelist mode. Hi, Philip. Okay, hold on here. There, are you able to chat now? On your, on your keyboard, Philip, at the very bottom, there's a button that lets you unmute. No, I still can't hear you.
So if we're having technical difficulties, one of the things that we can do is we have the healing hour.
Yes.
In a couple weeks, and let's invite Philip on as a guest.
That would be fantastic.
How's that? Because then he can have time to talk about his story, right? So that would be great.
Okay.
So let's do that.
Okay.
And then let's kind of wrap this session up with whatever Q&A that we have, and then we can
Okay.
let Robert go because I don't want to hold him up anymore.
Sure. Perfect. So Philip, I'm sorry, we're not quite sure why you're not unmuting, but what I'm going to do is take it offline, and then I would love to have you come back at the end of the month. We have another episode with Albert and Matthew. Fantastic. Okay. We'll talk with you about that later on then through email. Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. So those of you that are on Facebook right now, if you have questions, please pass them over to Leah. And I am going to start on some of the email questions here. And we do have a couple of unrelated questions to this topic as well that some patients wanted to know. The first question, maybe if you could just recap, because I know you lightly touched on these, Dr. Mao. One of the individuals wanted to know, okay, what heart-related conditions can be treated with acupuncture? So what would
so we can help lower cholesterol. We can lower blood pressure. We can reset and balance your autonomic nervous system. So because if you think about it, what causes the heart rhythm, the electrical system, to go off and speed up oftentimes is tripped off by cortisol or adrenaline. So we got to keep those two stress hormones down, under control, right? And so we don't want to get into that survival mode all the time. So we can also help treat and maintain. Again, we're not talking about cure, but maintain a healthy rhythm in terms of atrial fibrillation, which Robert had mentioned a little earlier. Mm-hmm. And if you do have plaque, let's try to help you lower the plaque. I mean, there's studies coming out of Cleveland Clinic that show a vegan plant-based diet can definitively reverse plaque buildup in your arteries. So these are kind of things that can be helped. So again, I'm happy to take it offline. If you have any questions, you can always call me at the office. I'm happy to discuss with you how we can address various heart conditions.
Okay. Can you touch a little more though on arrhythmia? That's another question from a patient, and then another one would like to know for angina pain.
So arrhythmia, there's the benign. So arrhythmia just means irregularity. So there's the benign, which means that it doesn't really have any health consequences. And then there is the arrhythmia then the categories are atrial fibrillation, ventricular fibrillation, there's tachycardia, there's bradycardia, which is slow, tachycardia is fast, and there's PVCs, there's a number of different kind of rhythm issues, and then there's congestive heart failure as well. And Chinese medicine, in fact, has really been shown to be very good for congestive heart failure. We can strengthen the heart muscles and increase the ejection fraction and improve the patient quality of life. So those are things that we can definitely be very helpful with.
Thank you. All right. It looks like we actually have quite a few people on Facebook right now, but we have a quiet group on Facebook today. So I am going to move over to some of the unrelated topic questions. We do have an individual that would like to know, because in the past, during your talks, you talked about eating egg whites, eating bone broth, eating fish. How a person wants to know, like, how do you know how often you need to eat these type of foods and what it does for stomach yin?
Well, couple things, right? So, if we're choosing animal products, let's say, for example, some people are not entirely appropriate to be on a completely plant-based diet, like the ones that I've talked about and what my wife and I've been doing. So, in that case, you can eat a small amount of eggs or egg whites that have lower fat content. So that's what we're looking at, because egg white is pure protein. That's albumin, and so it's devoid of fat. So that's what we're trying to do, is lower any kind of saturated fat if you can. And fish, of course, we have deep sea fish, sardines filled with omega-3 fatty acids. The fish eats the seaweed and the kelp and the algae, and that's where the omega-3 comes from, by the way. Farm-raised fish have 0 omega-3s, therefore does nothing for you in terms of inflammation, fighting inflammation. And then bone broth, of course, can be used as a a way to supplement your body. There's a lot of minerals, such as calcium, magnesium, manganese, and other kind of minerals that are helpful for you. And that calcium is important, right? Because we know calcium, magnesium are both regulate blood pressure. And so that's something that you want to make sure you have sufficient amounts. And in our coffee gulping culture, we leach out a lot of calcium in terms of taking in acid blockers. A lot of people don't realize this. Acid blockers prevent you from absorbing calcium and other critical minerals. So if you've been taking heartburn medication for a long time, you're deficient in calcium and other minerals. So bone broth can also provide some of that benefit too. And but as far as really nourishing your stomach and so forth, these are all very appropriate. And how much to have? Well, you don't want to be having it every day. I would say 2 to 3 times a week is probably a good guideline.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, one other question with sardines, because you mentioned sardines, and I think particularly in American culture, there are tin sardines, there's jarred sardines, there's frozen sardines. What do you recommend?
You can buy fresh sardines. Just go down to the fish market and buy it. They're cheap. They are very, very nutritious. Now, if you have to, because you live in a very cold place like Chicago, for example, or you don't have ready access to fresh sardines, okay, then buy sardines in a can. But make sure the can is free from BPA, so that's the plastic lining. That's number one. Number two, that the sardine, is either in water or just oil. They usually put in some olive oil. Right. And three, that the sardines are caught in waters are not polluted. How do you know that, right? Mm-hmm. Well, usually they tell you where it's caught. And this is something that you want to just emphasize. Just make sure that the sardine comes from a clean water, and at the same time, it's not packed in cans that have plastic lining and so forth. Yeah, and salt. I mean, you don't want any salt in there. Sodium, controlled sodium in your diet is very important, because excess salt is going to increase your blood pressure, and that's not good for your heart.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then the final question, this is a color therapy question, actually. So is visualizing the color pink as beneficial as visualizing the color red? And are these both considered heat-oriented colors? And also then, is blue considered a cooling color?
Yes, actually the answer is correct for both. One is warming, one's cooling. Now, the warming reds, right, the shades of red, pink has been shown to lower your blood pressure and calm someone when you're angry, you're upset, you walk into a pink room. Mm-hmm. In fact, psychiatric units, when they're trying to calm down a psychotic patient, they throw them into a room that's painted shades of pink. So we can use that, in our visualization, meditation. That's very helpful. And also red and pink also, they basically increase flow. They're warming, so they increase flow. That's what we want. Heart is all about movement, pumping. Yes, you mentioned blue. Blue is cooling, calms you down as well. And it's color that's associated more with kidney, adrenals, and Chinese medicine. But red is the color of the heart, and that's why we emphasize that color so much.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. I'm just doing one more check-in with Leah, if we have anything on our other side of Facebook. One moment. No. Okay. Well, we are ready to conclude for tonight. Just maybe in closing, if I can ask both of you, starting with Robert, one piece of wisdom that you would like to leave everyone with.
One piece of wisdom. Well, Dr. Mao has all the wisdom.
No, that's not true. He does have a lot of wisdom.
But I would say that it's if this is something that you're ready to do, that following this path, using Chinese medicine along with Western medicine, and really having somebody to help you change your diet and change your lifestyle. This is a great path to follow. And there's a lot of support, and you get a lot of support from your loved ones as well. So that's what I would offer.
Okay. Thank you so much again, Robert, for joining us this evening. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Mao?
Well, I'm inspired by actually Robert, story and many of my patients that I see on a regular basis, because it really is it's a moment of awakening. Mm-hmm. When someone comes in and they're ready to embark on this, and they do the work, and the results are there. The credit all goes to them, because ultimately, Robert, you are the one who walked the path. I just merely pointed the way and kind of supported you along the way, but you did it. So I want to emphasize that, what I like to do is for people to awaken sooner rather than later, because there's way too many people we have lost and we are losing every day because they have not awakened to the fact that, heart disease is completely preventable, and that you need to make a choice. And that choice is, as he reminded me, what I told him, that we need to learn to eat to live and not live to eat. And you can still enjoy, by the way. It doesn't mean you should deprive yourself, but you can enjoy. But think about that: eat to live, and make choices, the right choices every day for you and your loved ones. And the world will be a better place because of those choices you made.
Thank you. I so enjoyed this episode. Thank you both very much. I hope those of you watching right now were able to enjoy and take in this wisdom as well with us, and this will be available for replay immediately on Facebook if any of you would like to share it with friends. We will also put it on our YouTube channel at the end of the month. Just a recap of some upcoming events. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, we have Women's Wellness with Dr. Dow, and we will be talking about hormones. Then on the 27th, we have the Healing Hour with Matthew and Albert, and we will be returning to the topic of heart health. It will be a very interesting topic because we will be discussing the difference between women's heart health and men's heart health, because there are similarities and yet, or commonalities, I should say, and yet there are distinct differences as well. And now we will have Philip on as a special guest. And then on the 28th, we have, with Dr. Dow, his spiritual telestudy. So we hope that you will be able to tune into our other events with February. And if not, you're always welcome to watch them in replay. So again, thank you, gentlemen, for this evening. And to those of you that are viewers, we thank you as well. And we look forward with connecting you later on in the month. So take care. Bye.
Thank you.